Hey everyone, and welcome to your C# tutorial on methods. So you might remember in our last tutorial, we talked about an object's state, right? And so you can think of sort of the state of an object as the member variables inside of it. It's because member variables hold on to information. As we know, state is saved information. So you can think of terms of state in terms of member variables. And obviously member variables are at their core just variables that are members of a class. So when we create a class, let's create one down here and we'll call it bank account. We'll create a member variable. We'll make it public. Integer called balance. So this balance variable is the member variable of our bank account class, and it will hold the state of this class. And so that's just a little bit of a recap on state. So let's discuss methods now. And so we can define a method as a function that is inside of an object, a member of an object, right? So in the same way that a variable is a member variable when it's inside of an object, a method is just a function that is inside of an object. And when we think of variables and member variables and state, we can also associate functions, methods, and behavior, right? So we can say that so I'm just writing these here to sort of outline the relationship, right? So a variable is to a member variable what a function is to a method. And a member variable is to state what a method is to behavior, right? So that they kind of parallel each other in that way. And you can also think of a variable or a member variable as being sort of a noun, like balance, and a method would be something like a verb to show action, because methods do something, right? Methods are just functions that are inside of our classes and our objects. Okay, so let's create our first method. So as we talked about, methods do something. So we're going to be using, we're going to begin the method name with a verb versus our member variable, which is a noun, because methods are more similar to behavior. So we'll create a public method, and it will be void, and we will call it add deposit. So the purpose of this method is going to be to add some amount to our bank account balance, right? To our bank account balance member variable. So we have our add deposit method. Let's create a parameter list. We'll add a parameter to that in a minute, but first let's open up our scope using our curly braces. So our method will live between these two curly braces, just like a function. We're just writing a function here. It's called a method because it's part of a class. So for a parameter, let's pass in an integer, and we'll call it deposit amount. So now we have our method set up, all except for the body. Now, inside of a class, you can access your member variables and methods freely, whether they're private or public. You can access private member variables and methods inside of your class, but not outside of your class. And you can access public member variables and methods inside of your class and outside of your class. So For the purpose of this tutorial, we're going to be using the this keyword. And you don't need to use the this keyword in your class, but I like to do it because it's clear and it's explicit. So what this refers to in C# when you're inside of a class is it refers to the class itself. So when you're using the this keyword, you can access your member variables and your methods and whatever's inside of your class. So when I say this dot balance, I am accessing this member variable inside of this class. Now remember, this member variable exists inside the scope of our bank account class. And so anywhere in between these two curly braces, I can say this dot balance and access this member variable. And so what I'll do is I'll say this dot balance, so our balance member variable, and we'll set it equal to this dot balance. So we're saying it's equal to itself. So if this is 100, then it will be equal to 100 plus our deposit amount. Awesome. So let's use this in our program. So to use this in our program, we can start by deleting the hello world, and let's start by creating a bank account object. We will call this pizza account, and we'll set it equal to a new bank account object. Awesome. So in pizza account, let's set the balance equal to $100. So that'll be our starting balance. And to begin the users portion of this program, we'll do a console write line. And we can say, welcome to the ATM. And let's copy this and say, your current balance is, and we'll print out our pizza account dot balance. And then we will actually, let's copy this again. And we'll say, how much would you like to deposit? Awesome. So then we'll create a variable and we'll call this user input. It's going to be an integer because we're going to be using it as a parameter for our method down here. So we'll set our user input equal to a console.readline. And remember, a console.readline returns a string, but our user input variable is an integer, so we're going to need to do int32.parse. And cool. So what we're doing here is we're reading in our user input and we're turning it into an integer, and we're storing that integer into our user input variable. Awesome. So then what we can do is in our pizza account object, we have access to our add deposit function, our add deposit method, because it's public. So what we can do is to access that method, we use pizza account dot, and you see it in our list of possible members. So a method works in the same way that a member variable does. You can access it if it's public, and you can't if it's private. So this is a public method, so we can access it. And let's open up our parameter list, and let's pass in user input as our parameter. Awesome. So now, after we add our deposit amount, we'll do a console.writeLine. And let's say in our right line, we'll say your new balance is, and we will call our pizza account object, and we will say balance here. Awesome, so there's our program. We've created a new bank account object, and we have it stored in our variable pizza account. Inside of our bank account object, we can access our balance. We give it the initial value of 100. We print that out down here. We take in some input from our user, and we add it to our balance member variable. So remember, that member variable is state. It's the state of the object. So that member variable lives as long as our object lives. And so it'll just record whatever information we save into it. And so when we add our user input here, it should save it into our balance member variable, because that's what we've coded down here. And so then at the end of that, we print out our balance member variable. So let's run this. Awesome. Welcome to the ATM. Your current balance is 100, right? And so we printed out our account balance over here, and we see that it's currently 100, which makes sense because that's what we set it to. So now let's put in a number, and that should access our add deposit method, which mutates our bank account state. So let's add in $20. Let's hit enter. And we can see that when we print out our account balance here, that it still has the $20 that we added before in our method, which takes place right here. So you guys can see how the bank account object, now close this terminal window, the bank account object up here has our member variable that stores the state. So as long as our bank account object exists, we will have that state saved. So when we change that state, that's called state mutation. And we achieved that through using our method down here. And remember, a method works the same way as a function, except a method belongs to a class. So whenever you create an object of this class type, you get both the member variables and the methods along with it. And so those member variables and methods live as long as the object lives. So until the object goes out of scope here, you will have access to all of those member variables and all of that state, and then all of the methods and all of that behavior as well. Okay, so that's sort of a basic rundown of state, behavior, and state mutation in C#. Thanks.